Happy Friday, y'all. Happy Friday. It is Thanksgiving Friday. It is Thanksgiving Friday in the United States. I found out today that some Caribbean countries have actually gone towards Black Friday. So I hear that y'all are enjoying Thanksgiving, spending money minus the food. Ouch. Ouch. Anyway, tonight, I have a special guest with me on Dominica Diaspora Stories. Y'all, I think I was gifted with meeting Dr. Dangleben on my way home from Atlanta to Dominica in October. We met at the airport in Barbados. And I was so grateful when he said, "Yeah, Doc, yeah, man, yeah, man, yeah, man, I'll talk with you." So I have the man himself. I'm going to read off a few of this man's achievements. One of the reasons that I've decided to do Dominica Diaspora Stories is because I want us to hear more about what we're doing and to look for themes across people's stories to find traits and factors and skills that people are using to create success. So, listen to this. Dr. Dale Dangleben, MD, FACS, FACS, I think it's, what's that? The College of Surgeons. He'll tell us more. Yeah. He's the Chief of Surgery and the Trauma Medical Director at Penn State Holy Spirit Medical Center in Pennsylvania. This man has been the Surgical and Trauma ICU Director, Acute Care Surgery Director at Penn State Health Holy Spirit Medical Center, Clinical Associate Professor of Surgery at Penn State University School of Medicine, Section Editor, Surgery in a journal is Springer Nature Comprehensive Clinical Medicine Journal, y'all. Chief Editor of Caribbean Health Awareness Magazine, editor at McGraw-Hill. McGraw-Hill. Y'all know about that? What y'all know about that? Listen, I'm going to invite him to come on so he can tell us more because I think I might have to spend the rest of the night talking about what you've done, Dr. Dangleben. So welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you
Yes,
for
sir.
having me. Thank you for having me. It's truly a pleasure. It was so nice, running into you in the airport for the first time. And yes, I could not turn down this opportunity to at least come on here and talk. I think it's important to have conversations and get to know each other. Social media is one thing, and but I think meeting in person, and not just that, we met in Roseau. You guys
Yes,
jamming to the music. So I think these kind of forums are important also, so we could discuss where we are individually, collectively, and also where we're going.
I agree. I agree. So my first question to everybody is, what is their diaspora story? What is your story of leaving Dominica? How did that come about?
Yeah,
And why did you do that?
I'm sure quite a few people have heard this before. Um, I won a green card lottery.
What?
Yeah, I
Oh,
uh,
wow.
I won a green card lottery. It's very interesting that there was I had no, how would I put this? America was not on my mind at the time, and there was something that popped up in the paper, and I want to say it was my friend Matt, famous Matt from Q95, who
Uh-huh.
was the one who actually brought it up, and a whole group of us filled out the forms
Wow.
and submitted it, and it was not until I want to say end of 1990 that I got a response from the American embassy saying that I was chosen to get a green card.
I remember when they used to have the lottery.
Yep, and that's how. And first of all, when I got the response, I did not believe it. And it's interesting because it was my dad, rest his soul, that said, it doesn't hurt to go
Yeah.
check it out. So I read the
Yeah.
details. It said you got to go to Barbados, you got to do the physical, you got to go for the interview.
Hmm.
And January 2nd, 1991, I left and I went to Barbados, and I got my green card. And they gave me 4 months to leave Dominica. I
So
went
you
back.
had to leave.
Yeah, you have to use the documents. I was teaching at the St. Mary's Academy at the time,
Okay.
and I went back, and Brother Jermaine had just got back because it was
Hmm. Hmm.
Brother Wakeham who had hired me in 1988, and now it's 91. I went back and I told Brother Jermaine that I got my green card, and he was not too happy about that.
Oh, I can
I
only imagine.
I didn't, honestly, I didn't care at that time. I
What
and
do you
I
mean you didn't care? What do you mean you didn't care?
Because it was my time. He was
Mm,
upset that I was gonna leave and not come back. He wanted
mm,
me to go and come back to finish the semester, but would not pay for me to come back. And so I bought a one-way ticket. Actually,
mhm.
I still have that ticket. I kept it. Riyadh to Canefield to Antigua, and then Antigua to JFK,
Yeah.
1991, and that's how I ended up in the U.S.
Wow.
Someday I'll publish that book. I've been writing a lot about that.
Wow. 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 Y'all, will you please share the live tonight? Let me know if you're having difficulty. Somebody texted me and said they were having difficulty sharing the live. Go ahead and share the live because I want a lot of people to hear Dr. Danglebin's story. Okay. So you leave Dominica, you've got to leave within 4 months. You come up. What state did you go to and what did you start doing?
Well, first of all, I needed a sponsor, and my
Mm-hmm.
uncle, Francis Warrington, was my sponsor, and
Mm-hmm.
New York, Brooklyn, New York, and that's where that's where I landed. But
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting because I like to tell the story of my first view of America, because the embassy had given me directions and said they gave me an envelope that I held for months that I was not
Mm-hmm.
supposed to open, right? So, and
Right.
I was supposed to hand that over when I got to JFK. And there's actually a courtroom in the airport. I don't know a lot of people know that. And I had to present this envelope to this judge. So they escorted me to this courthouse. It was coming up on midnight, and I saw two guys in shackles on a bench, and the judge arguing with a young girl and telling her, I'm going to send you back to Ecuador. You're going to Ecuador. Get on the next flight to Ecuador. She was, obviously, she had a false document. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
trembling with this
Mm-hmm.
envelope, And then it was my turn. I went up and I gave it to him. He opened it. And then he stamped my A number. And he said, that's it. And I walked out into the New York night. And like they say, the rest is history.
Wow, wow, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so from what you're saying, clearly you were excited about it. You were excited about moving.
Well, I was excited for what was ahead. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
Mm-hmm.
my father drove me to Canefield Airport with a lot of my friends,
Mm-hmm. With a
and
lot of your friends. I remember how we used to do that. Everybody would come with you to the
yeah,
airport. Yeah.
and my father, said to me, he bought me a Heineken, and we sat there drinking, and
Yes, yes.
he said, "I'm happy that you're living." He said, "You're either gonna be in jail or you're gonna end up in the cemetery." That
Oh
was what my
boy.
dad told me. So he was excited that I was leaving,
Yes.
and I had to put all these things into perspective. And a
Mm-hmm.
friend of mine, she had said to me when I was leaving, she said, New York does not sleep. Don't
Mm-hmm.
close your eyes. And
Oh,
I still remember that.
yeah, yeah.
And it's this little things were in my head playing
Mm-hmm.
all this time. Don't New York does not sleep, so you should not sleep. What does that mean? But like I said, I started understanding the new society that I was trying to mesh into.
So what did
And
that come to mean for you? What did that come to
that
mean for
well,
you?
so first things first, I tried getting a job.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I went to sixth form college. I
Yes.
did advanced level chemistry, physics, math, and there I was trying to get a job
Mm.
and I taught SMA for 2.5 years, and
Right.
there I am trying to get a job in this great United States, and for
Mm-hmm.
almost a year I couldn't get a job. I pound the concrete back and forth,
Mm-hmm.
and my first job was as a security guard officer
Mm.
first was a construction site on 57th Street in Manhattan for
Yes, yes,
five
yes.
dollars and $25 an hour.
Woo! Yes,
Yeah, and that was my
yes.
first job. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and so I didn't go to college because remember, the system up here, you have to be here a year
Mm-hmm.
and get into the system before you can go and get financial aid and go to school.
Yes,
So I did
established
not. I,
residency.
I did not start school until 1992.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, and in that struggle of trying to get a job, being educated,
Mm-hmm.
being at least being book smart,
Right.
I started understanding the society in which I was trying to mash into.
Mm-hmm.
One of the interviews that, and a lot of things were not registering initially.
Yes.
One of the first interviews I went to, the woman she was shocked that I was black, and I said, she's like, oh, I thought your name was Dangleben.
Oh.
She said, I thought you were German. I
Mm.
said, no, I said, it's Dangleben, and I'm from the
Mhm.
Caribbean.
Yes.
And it was kind of weird. It was for a chemistry job, which I felt I was qualified for.
Right.
But then I couldn't put the pieces together. I was like, what's going on here? And even when I started working as a security guard, the things that would happen, they would just pull me off the job, and say, we don't need you tonight. Or they
Mm.
would keep me on the job for 3 shifts straight and do
Mm-hmm.
crazy things. And I started using that brain of mine, and I started to think. I started to listen. I started hearing my dad. My dad and I, when I was a teenager, we had a contentious relationship, and my father was a genius in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And now that I'm old, I he was as wise as the old owl, and things that he used to tell me started echoing in my head. And when I first couple of years, and I started
Mm-hmm.
education. You have to stick. You have to, no matter what. I went from $5.25 an hour to $6 an hour. Right?
Mm-hmm.
They moved me to Queens College, where Jerry Seinfeld and Ray Romano went to college, and
Yes.
I had a desk job as a security guard, making $6 an hour
Mm-hmm.
with my tight jacket and my
Mm-hmm.
my clip-on tie.
Uniform. Mm-hmm.
But I was on the train once, and the pants were tight, and the pants were high waters. They were short of a length. It was a short of a length. And these kids were coming from school. They were laughing at me. They were laughing at me, and I felt away. And
Yeah.
I said to myself, in my head, I kept saying, you know what? It's a means to an end. It's a means to an end. They don't know. They don't know how smart you are. They don't know where
Yeah.
you're going.
Yeah.
Just keep pushing. Keep pushing. And I can tell you, I started formulating things in
Yes.
all this experience. And when I was working, I finally I was working at the Jewish nursing home.
Mm-hmm.
It was called the Menorah, and I was doing the graveyard shift. I still remember this. I used to take the B-59 bus in Brooklyn to go to Ship's Head Bay every
Mm-hmm.
night, and we had to every hour we had to make rounds around the whole building. It was two of us. It was me and this Haitian guy. So he would go 1 hour, and I would go 1 hour, and I had my book. I was studying. He was studying, in between. But the supervisor would just show up,
Right.
and you were not allowed to study. You were not
Mm-hmm.
allowed to sleep. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember him getting fired over that. And I was just scared. I was like, wow, are they gonna fire me?
Mm-hmm.
And all these little things, man. I started putting it together and saying, you know what? I gotta go. I gotta push. I can't keep doing this for the rest of my life. But a
Yeah.
lot of folks around me did not realize that even if I had my Kawat ways,
Right.
my schoolwork never suffered, even in
Mm-hmm.
Dominica. And
Mm-hmm.
up here, I knew that was my chance, was to shine academically.
That was your path, your door.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
So what was the transition like between that job and getting into school, pursuing the education route?
Oh, I did both. I worked full time.
Oh,
I worked full time. I worked the graveyard shift. I worked
yes,
midnight to 8, and then
yes.
I took I took the B-59 bus to work at night, and
Mm-hmm.
then during the day I took the number 2 train. I think it was the E, and then the E, and I went to Hunter College in Manhattan. So I took a full course load. I had I had 4 or 5 classes,
Yes.
plus I had a full-time job,
Mm-hmm.
and there
When
was
did you
no
sleep?
in between. So I slept in the afternoon, and then went to work, and then it's a cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And on Saturday, I did 16 hours on the security job.
Work. Wow.
So
So pushing, 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 pushing,
yeah,
pushing. Yeah.
but school was the focus, and I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to be actually I wanted to be a chemist. I wanted to be a
Mm-hmm.
bench chemist, and that was my dream. I always say chemistry was my first love,
Mm-hmm.
and although some other people might not say that, but I wanted to be a chemist,
You
and that was
shifted to medicine because.
well. That's that's a whole love story in of itself. I met this woman. I don't want to go too deep into it,
You
but
don't have to.
no.
Yeah.
I met this. It's everything that happened to me, from getting the green card.
Mm-hmm.
From my path, it was guided.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you believe in, it was
That's
guided.
right. That's right.
And I met this woman in college whose father was a surgeon.
Mm.
Yeah, and we started dating, and he was
Mm-hmm.
Haitian. He was
Oh.
a Haitian surgeon. I ended up marrying this woman. That's another
Oh.
whole.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
So it came to that part where I went to the clinic. This
Mm-hmm.
man was running a free clinic every Tuesday
Wow.
and Friday for Caribbean people.
Oh, wow.
And that was my first view of medicine,
Mm-hmm.
because there I was. I want to be a chemist. I want to be a chemist.
Mm-hmm.
And I was working as a security guard, but I was also working in college during college school hours in a
Mm-hmm.
lab. And yeah, Dr. Richard Frank, that's another whole story. But he had a Jamaican woman in there who was a PhD for about 2 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Who, and she said to me, she whispered to me, I forgot her name. She said, "You don't want to do this." She said, "This is miserable," because I wanted to be a PhD chemist.
Yeah.
And she's like, "No, no." So and then I started, falling in love with the medical thing I was seeing. And as a
Mm-hmm.
matter of fact, it was a Haitian, an African, and an Indian running that clinic. The
Mm.
the, the Haitian was a surgeon. The
Mm-hmm.
African was a OB-GYN, and the
Yeah.
Indian guy was a general practitioner,
Wow.
right? And they were serving the community in Queens. And I was just so impressed. And there again, I felt this higher calling.
Yes.
So I changed my major. No, I kept my major as
Mm-hmm.
chemistry. That's why I have a degree in chemistry.
Mm-hmm.
But I went to pre-med route. I
Gotcha.
already had the physics. I already had the chemistry. I already had the biology, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I had everything already. I went to the pre-med advisor. That's a whole other story. And I talk about this on my TikTok. I have a TikTok that I do.
Mm-hmm.
I talk about my pre-med advisor. This man was a horrible human being, and he tried to discourage me.
A lot of
And
people encounter
yeah,
that. A lot
yeah,
of people
I
encounter
can tell you,
advisors who do that.
I made the dean's list every semester. Every
Mm.
semester I was on the dean's list, and I was about to graduate magna cum laude in chemistry,
Mm-hmm. Wow.
and this man said to me, "Oh, you're from the Caribbean. You should just go to school down there." And I'm an A student up here, and I was
Mm-hmm.
baffled.
Mm-hmm.
But I had already done my research, and then "Well, you have not done any volunteer work up here." I said, "Dude, I'm working full time. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
school full time. I'm
Right.
on the dean's list. I'm getting A's in everything, and you want me to go volunteer?"
Yeah.
He said, "Well, you're not going to get into medical school up here." This was my pre-med advisor.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I said,
Essentially shutting you down.
"Yeah," and
Yeah.
I've written about it in my book. It's interesting because this man was supposed to be like, "Oh, magna cum laude, chemistry, boom,
Right.
boom, boom." You know, no, he did not do that for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I went and I went ahead. I said, "Hell with this guy. I'm not doing volunteer work. I'm gonna apply. I'm gonna give this one shot." I did say that.
Mm-hmm.
I said, "I'm gonna take the MCATs." I took the MCATs and I aced it.
Wow.
And I went to interview.
Mm-hmm.
And on my second interview, I got accepted. I got accepted on the spot.
Yeah.
But then I got nominated for the not nominated. I got the Jonas Salk Award from my college.
Mm-hmm.
Jonas Salk was
What is that? Mm-hmm.
the polio vaccine. The guy who developed the polio vaccine. There's an award that they give out at
Okay.
every campus, and I was one of
Mm-hmm.
those.
Yes.
It was a big deal,
Mm-hmm.
and my premier advisor was there, and I ran into
Same
him.
dude.
Huh?
Same dude.
Yeah, I ran into him and I said, "Hey, I got accepted.
Yes.
I said, "Yeah, I got accepted to Penn State." He said, "Oh, I knew you would." And in my back of my mind, I'm like, "You,
Wow.
yeah." But it was just interesting that I had the opportunity again,
Mm-hmm.
the force of the universe,
Yes.
the force of the universe.
Yes.
And if I had just walked away and said, "You know what, Mister is right. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
volunteer work. I'm not gonna get in. Let me try to
Mm-hmm.
apply somewhere else." I didn't do that because I
Yeah.
had that confidence. And I'm going to tell you something I don't think I've ever said in any other interview. Every time I had to take a test, I would close my door
Mm-hmm.
and I would listen to Bob Marley for about an hour. That's all I listened to. I would listen to Bob and I would get into a zone and I would
Yes.
just go in. I would go and ace my exams and be done with it. And that was my focus. That was my focus. My focus
Mm-hmm.
was I was going to go to medical. I was going to take the MCAT once. I was going to pass it. I was going to
Mm-hmm.
go to med school. And I went to med school knowing that I wanted to become a surgeon because of the influence that Haitian guy had on me.
Right.
You see what I
It
mean?
touched you somewhere. It touched you
Right.
somewhere.
And
Yes.
even when I went to med school, I tried to convince myself that surgery was too difficult.
Mm.
Maybe it was too difficult for the lifestyle.
Uh-huh.
But even when I went to the emergency room rotation and all these other things, I came back to surgery because that was my calling. I always
Mm-hmm.
say there was a higher purpose. You know what I mean? From the green card,
Mm-hmm.
from winning the green card, coming here, going through the system, not the legal system, the system,
Right.
and
Yeah.
getting to where I am today.
What's been your lowest point and your highest point as a surgeon?
As a surgeon or as a
Mhm.
human?
Surgeon in your
um,
work, in that work.
I think the med school was interesting. Med school was just a roller coaster.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when I started my residency, I was still naive. I was still coming out, into being, and
What does that mean? What do you mean by that?
I was still understanding the system as a black man in the
You
system.
mentioned that word system a lot. Keep going.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I've spoken about it before, but I think when I started being stereotyped,
Mm-hmm.
that was my most difficult time, and I've spoken about it a lot very recently. I kept a lot
Mm-hmm.
of it. There were nights I would go home and go to my basement and cry.
Oh.
It was
Mm-hmm.
hard. Residency was hard,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of it was because I was black. I was
Mm.
big. I'm 6'5".
You're hard to miss.
Yeah, I'm loud.
Mm-hmm.
And folks made me think that I was just an angry black
Mm-hmm.
man.
Mm-hmm.
And I have several examples of what happened during residency, but I think that one of the hardest things that I have come to deal with is being overlooked and being bypassed because of my achievements. And what does that mean? That means that a lot of the people I trained that I felt were mediocre
Mm-hmm.
bypassed me because of who they were, not because of what they brought to the table. And I think that's the biggest lesson that I have learned in this medical,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm now the chief of surgery. I am trauma medical director, whoop de doo. But there
Mm-hmm.
was a time where I was the only published author,
Mm-hmm.
right? I was giving workshops across the country. I was traveling, doing this, doing that,
Mm-hmm.
and folks were being promoted over me, right? And one of my former residents just sent me something this week. I think he's out in Tennessee, and
Mm-hmm.
he said being too good. I forgot what it was. Being too good, being overqualified to be promoted. And he said that reminded him of me.
Uh-huh.
And because, he remembered that I did everything. And sometimes you get so good
Mm-hmm.
that the system, I keep saying that, does
Mm-hmm.
not want to promote you because you're too good at what you do.
So
And
as in they don't want to lose your skills at the level where you are.
right. Some
Okay.
of that.
Some of
Some
that.
of that.
What
But
I'm going to ask about the because there's also politics and there's
mhm,
also, schmoozing and these other,
I'm not a schmoozer.
there you go, these other
Yeah.
upper echelon kind of skills that some people who are not as qualified are good at.
Right.
And so they do make that leap
Yeah.
sometimes ahead of the people who are more qualified.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's and my last book, Walking with the Ancestors, I touched on that
Mm-hmm.
um some a bit, but my next, I said I was not going to write these books anymore, but I'm going to do one final book covering everything, and I really want to emphasize that because I want whoever's coming after me to read
Mm-hmm.
it and understand that you don't have to schmooze. You don't have to let your work
What do
speak
you
for
think?
its
Okay.
let your work speak for itself,
Mm-hmm.
because I think if your work does not speak for itself and you're just an ass kisser, it
Mm-hmm.
catches up with you eventually,
I agree
right?
with that.
And I've always said the work that I've done speaks for itself. So
Mm-hmm.
again, no one can say, well, he got promoted because he was black, or he was
Mm-hmm.
this, or he was that.
Mm-hmm.
No, he came, he did the work. As a matter of
Mm-hmm.
fact, the trauma program that I'm at right now, I was the only trauma surgeon there.
Mm.
There was no trauma program before me. I started
Yeah.
that program.
Yes.
You see what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
it's like it's not like I came and had to write somebody's coattail, or there was none of that. Now the
Right.
job before that, the two jobs before that, I was doing everything, and I would just get
Mm-hmm.
passed by.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote my first book for McGraw-Hill, published in 2012.
Tell us more
Right?
about McGraw-Hill. So when you say McGraw-Hill,
Mhm.
people like me go, wow, right?
Well, wait till you see what's coming next year.
What's
Uh,
coming next year?
I have a big textbook, a 500-page textbook coming with them. Yeah,
That's whoa.
and that's a whole different ball game. But
Yeah, absolutely.
I
So
wrote.
McGraw-Hill, wait,
Mhm.
tell them who is McGraw-Hill and
Well,
what does that mean?
McGraw-Hill is one of the biggest publishers in the world
Yeah,
for textbooks, educational
absolutely.
textbook.
Yes,
They
yes.
also own Access Surgery. They own Access Medicine. They own
Mm,
everything Access Anesthesia. It's a whole
okay,
platform,
okay.
and it's interesting. My first book was the Upside Slayer. Now, Upside stands for
Mhm.
American Board of Surgery in Training Exam. That's the
Okay,
exam every surgeon in training has to take every year. I took it 5
okay.
times. Now, it's interesting. I wrote that book, and I got rejected 9 times. I couldn't get a publisher,
Mhm.
and I was about to create an app out of it. Yeah, I was
Mm,
frustrated, but then
yes,
I started writing another book called The Options in the Management of the Open Abdomen,
yes.
and I had reached out to Springer,
Uh-huh.
and
Spring is another publisher. Mhm.
Springer picked up that book. Now my
Yeah.
mom had just died, so I gave it to my chief resident for Madback. That's why he's
Mhm.
first author on that. But that was
Yes,
my project, my pictures, everything.
yes, yes.
And in talking to Springer, the guy said, "I said, I have this other book, I have this other book," and he's like, "You know what? We don't want that, but I know a guy at McGraw Hill.
Mhm.
Let me touch base with him."
Yes,
2 weeks later, I get a call.
yes.
That, you see, once your foot is in the door
That's it.
and you start talking to these folks,
Mhm.
this folk knows this folks, and right.
Yes.
So this guy, I drove down to New York to McGraw
Mhm.
Hill's office and met with this guy,
Mhm.
and I showed him what I had, and he
Mhm.
said, "Yeah, we want that." Right, and I can tell you, James Lee, my chief resident for Macback, who's now they're both attendings now. One is
Mhm.
general surgery, and one is in trauma surgery in Jacksonville.
Mhm.
We put this book together, we were in my basement. I had a huge movie theater in my basement, and we would be there late night, eating KFC, editing this book on the
Open it up.
projector on
Yes.
in the movie theater. Go chapter to chapter, every chapter,
Yes.
and then we handed it over to McGraw-Hill.
Mm-hmm.
And one day, the representative from McGraw-Hill drove all the way from New York to Lehigh Valley, which is 3.5 hours, to meet with me.
Wow.
He had the book in his hand. He surprised me with the Upside Slayer.
That's lovely.
And like I said, the rest is history. But they came back to me for second edition.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if the first edition wasn't doing too well, nobody's gonna come back and be like, "Who did the second edition?"
Exactly.
So I got very lucky in that regard. So Faraz Madback and myself did the second edition for McGraw-Hill, which is one of the most downloaded content by surgical residents in this country.
Very nice. Very nice.
And
Very nice.
I did another book for Springer,
Mm-hmm.
and now this big project. I don't want to go too much into it, but it's coming next year, and it's going to be a surgical atlas.
Yes.
That surgeons can use, and to me, that's the legacy.
That's right.
That book that's coming next year is going to be it.
Doc, look, I typed your name into Amazon, and I swear I saw over 30 publications. Some were you only, but some you were co-authoring with other people.
26, I think.
26. A lot of books, y'all. A lot of books. So what else have you been writing about? So you mentioned
medical. You see, and the other books you saw, and I want to make this fundamental. I don't help folks anymore in terms of publishing. It takes a lot, because I was doing the editing and everything else.
Right away.
But I wanted to see people work come to fruition. So I helped a lot of folks publish the books under Carrie Swap and Dangleben Publishing. So a lot of that is me.
So wait. So there's Dangleben Publishing as well.
Yeah. All my books now is under Dangleben Publishing.
That's wonderful.
So I did that. So I did some 2 nurses from Lehigh Valley had children's book, nursing children's book. Shirley Allen. I did 2 books with Shirley.
Yes.
Shirley's last book was phenomenal. I edited that with her. Kathy, I did her Kathy Winston, her cookbook, right? That was that, right? Now, interestingly enough, I started writing novels, and during COVID, it's not too long. I've written 5
after the virus. After the virus is the title I remember.
Well, the first one was the first. I don't even know. The Hidden Code was the first one.
Oh.
And then I was writing a second novel called My Name is Myrtle. But then I put that on the back burner to write after the virus.
Yes.
And then Dominance came.
I saw that.
Dominance to me. A Hidden Code is a wild idea.
Can you tell us a little bit about the premise?
Hidden Code is about Black Don't Crack. It's about the fountain of youth. And in all my books you could see that I am sort of obsessed with genetics. So it's about, what is the fountain of youth?
What do you think?
The book is The Hidden Code. What if it's a gene that's been turned off? Right? Because genes do turn on and off.
Right.
And that's the whole idea. It's a conspiracy of how you're gonna find that code. You have to go through some illegal means to get to the code. So that's all. Yeah, get the book. Yeah. And dominance is interesting. Dominance is a dark comedy. It's a geneticist. It's a Black geneticist that is always overlooked. And
let me put you on my couch, Doc.
he figures a way. Oh no, it's too complex up there. he figures out how to turn white people black and black people white.
Like Get Out.
So you should read that one. And then and then after the
Uh-huh.
virus touches several things. It talks about pharmaceutical greed.
Mhm.
I touch on the there are actually searchers out there looking for medicine in the wild, right?
Mhm.
In the Amazon, in Africa,
Right.
in the
Right.
ocean, right? It
Mhm.
touches on all that, but
Mhm.
it also ultimately talks about greed,
Mhm.
right?
Was
And
that did
then
you do that before COVID? This one was
no,
2020,
that came during COVID.
ah, during COVID.
And then My Name is Murder, which was supposed to be my second novel, ended up being my
Mhm.
fourth novel, which was loosely based on a true story. A woman in an accident in the middle of the night,
Mhm.
who's a Jane Doe. She has no identification on her, and
Mhm.
no one knows who she is. And the mystery, it's you have to go through the book to understand.
Okay,
And
y'all.
and My Name is Murder. And then the last one, Murder in Petite Bay. It's almost it's I have it on Amazon Kindle,
Uh-huh. Kindle Vella? No?
but
No?
it's not in hard print yet, because
Uh-huh.
the last couple chapters I'm still putting that together. But if you read it, if you get a good laugh if you read it.
Are there
It's
any
about
Dominica references in that one?
it's
Petite
it's
Bay, like
about it's I would
Soufriere?
say it's about murder in Petite Bay. You can extrapolate from there.
Uh-huh.
Um, it's about politics.
Grand Bay.
It's about
Mhm.
politics and murder.
Oh,
Uh,
Murder in Petite Bay, like Grand Bay.
well, however you want to switch it, and also the occult.
Oh,
I
like
touch a
Obia,
lot.
and
I touch a lot on the occult,
that one should be good.
and sacrifice, and
Oh,
yeah. So Murder in Petite Bay is out there on Kindle Vella. It's called. So
yes.
Kindle Vella is a new platform for those who are interested
Mhm,
in that. You could put out a chapter at a time as a teaser,
mhm.
like the novellas. That's why it's called
Yes,
Vella. And
yes.
I think I've put out 19 chapters. And so this is my fifth novel. I have a lot more ideas in there
Mhm.
that I'm working through, but I've also written books of poetry, and
Yes. Books
and
about Dominica. You
yeah,
have
and
something
then
about Dominica?
the trip. No, I did a book about the trip that we did for Maria, but that
Hmm.
was more of a tribute to the folks that came with me.
Mhm.
And I printed hardcover copies for everyone, and
Question
they
for you about the writing. Why do you write so much? Why do you write so many books? And so a book like the one you wrote after Maria, why are you writing so much?
Why am I writing?
Mhm.
I always wanted to write.
Mm.
It's interesting. I read so much
Mhm.
when I was growing up. Like
Yeah.
I read every book. I read every Nancy Drew, every Hardy Boy, every Famous
Right.
Five, every Secret Seven. I
Mhm.
read all these books. As a matter of fact, I owned all these books, and I used to
Mhm.
have a library when I was 10 years old. That I used to lend. People used to come and lend books, borrow books from me. So I
You
used
were
to
the
read.
dealer. Yes, yes,
So
yes.
it's
You're the book dealer.
but when you're young and you have an active imagination,
Absolutely, yeah.
it gets enhanced by reading these books.
Yes, absolutely.
But I
Mhm.
had put that away for so long
Mm.
that in 2013, when my mother died, I was going through a lot of things,
Mhm.
and it was almost like a trigger. And I started reading about folks reverting back to what they always wanted to do.
Yes.
And I said, you know what? I always wanted. There I was taking surgical pictures through my residency, always
Mm.
documenting things,
Yes.
but I was never writing, right? But then that passion of when I was, 12, 13,
Yeah.
14,
Yes.
just came back again in 2013. And I just started, and it never stopped from there. So,
I think that is powerful. I think writing is a very powerful vehicle.
yeah, it
And
is.
yeah, I know historically our peoples have transferred our stories orally. I love that. That's great. But a lot gets lost in
Yeah,
translation. and
Yeah.
in memory and recall. So we've got to write it down.
Yeah. I think the books that, Zenita and I did together,
Mhm.
Once Upon a Time in the Caribbean, Once
Mhm.
Upon a Time in Dominica,
Mhm.
is one of my favorite, because we actually came up with this idea on an airplane.
Mhm.
I think we were flying to Louisiana, and we came with the idea, and it just rushed came out of us.
Yeah.
And I went on Google, I got
Mhm.
images,
Mhm.
I met with the illustrator, and I wanted it to be very authentic.
Yeah.
If you go through that book, even the church is exactly like the Point Michel Church, and
Yes.
us going to church. So
Yeah.
everything in that book, and everyone that sees that book says, and then the other book is about the Neg Maouan on every island.
Mm.
I think every child in the Caribbean should have a copy of that book,
Absolutely.
because
Absolutely.
we talk about Dominica, but we went to every single island, and every
Mhm.
single island had a Neg Maouan,
Has their
and a
story.
lot of them were women, right? And so our two children's book, a very powerful book,
Yeah.
Caribbean book. So, and that's another passion that I have. You know, Zenita and I, thinking of what we're gonna do for number three. We actually had something right up your alley that
What is it?
we were messing with in 2019, about all the stereotypes when we were growing up. Not just
Mhm.
stereotypes, but some of the things that our parents and foreparents that felt that, let me get to the point here. Sucking your finger, peeing in bed, all these
Yeah.
things, like,
Yeah.
you know the mentality about it. So it was
What
more of a
what that might
psychological.
have been about? What might have been behind all that? Yeah.
Yeah, so that would
Psychologically.
not be a children's book. We've actually out we have the outline. We've had it. Maybe you and I, maybe the three of us should finish talking about this,
Finish it.
and
Yes.
and,
Yes.
and
Yes. It's
writing
behind
that
that.
book, because I think a lot of baggage came with a lot of these things. We're growing up
Unprocessed. And we're not
beating
talking about
beating
it.
some parents beating their children in front of the assembly,
Yes.
in front of school, and yeah.
Yeah.
So
In
we've
front of their friends everywhere.
yeah. But you're
Yeah.
right. We have to tell our own story.
Our own stories.
Yeah.
Our own stories.
Yeah.
Yes. It's very, very, very important. So I really applaud you. Y'all, seriously, you just type in Dale Dangleben book. People ask me, how do I get this book? We just put book and the person's name. It's going to come up. Okay. Google it. It's going to come up. I'm going to switch up on you, Doc. I'm going to
Hmm.
go towards a little bit of the Dominica vibe. What a lot of people know you for is not just your medicine and your practice, but you're very vocal about life in Dominica. And I want to talk first about what is it about Dominica? I mean, what is it about Dominica that keeps you wanting to, stay plugged in and talk about how we can do things better?
Yeah. Well, Dominica is home. And you, no matter where you are, I don't care what folks say, but there's always a yearning for home. And
Absolutely.
I think one thing, and you see that as you get older. As you
Absolutely.
get older, we're like the salmon that tries to get back, or the turtle.
Absolutely.
I
Against the
think,
current.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think Dominica has a special place in my heart. My
Mhm.
mom's gone, my dad's gone,
Mhm.
everybody's gone, but Dominica is still Dominica to me.
Mhm.
That's home. And at the
Mhm.
end of the day, no matter how long I stay up here,
Mhm.
Dominica is home. And
Yeah.
I think as a people, we have to identify as that. That's where you came from, no matter
Yeah.
where you go.
Of
Whether you
course.
went to England, Canada, home
Mm.
is home. As a matter of fact, a lot of folks, when they retire, they go back home. They
That's
go
right.
back home.
Yes. Mhm.
And I think that's part of the genetic code. I think that's part of the code too.
I agree. I
Duffy was
agree.
saying.
To
So
make the circle complete.
yeah,
Yeah.
in 2010, I when I was an attending already now for 5 years,
Mhm.
and I wanted to make a difference.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And I knew I could. So
Absolutely.
I reached out
Based on
to
all the skills you'd acquired and
right,
what you were
and I
doing. Yeah.
reached out to Timothy, who was the Minister of Health, through
Mhm.
my good friend Matt Pelletier.
Mhm.
Everyone knows. And Matt and I, we grew up together. Matt and I go as far back as I can recall because we grew up together right there
Mhm.
in the Sin City ghetto of Point Michel.
Mhm.
And through Timothy, I said to him, I'm coming down. I'm gonna bring some equipment. Give me a list of what you guys, right? And
Mhm.
that was my first, you know, into that.
Your
I have
first
all
what?
this
What does that mean into that? Your first attempt to what? Your first
to talk medicine,
got
to
you.
say, hey,
Transfer some of your skills
right.
into the
Hey,
to
I'm a
Dominic.
doctor. I'm a
Mhm.
Dominican doctor in the U.S. I want to
Mhm.
help.
Mhm.
As a matter of fact, my 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 email clearly states that I want to help for free.
Mm. You're
But I
paying it forward
also at the same time I had put in for my my medical license,
in
and
Dominica.
I had sent it to
Mhm.
somebody. I think the last name was Shillingford,
Mhm.
and I later found out that he was 80 something years old and he was the chairman of the board. But I never heard from them for over a year, like no
Mhm.
response, like no
For a
response
year.
for a whole year, and then all of a sudden, so then I also have emails to Kenneth Daru, who I went to sixth form with,
Mm.
Ian Pinad, who was also a minister at the time from Point Michel. I say, trying to let them know that, hey guys, I want to help,
Right.
right? As a matter of fact, through that short period of time between 2010 and 2013, I have a lot of communications talking not just about medicine, but
Mhm.
about other businesses, right? And I can tell you, and I'm going to be brutally honest, I'm not holding anything back.
Mhm.
When I went down in 2012 or 2013, I met with Felix Gregoire, and I met with Felix. Felix, I knew Felix growing up. He
Mhm.
was my dad's friend. He was from Scott said he married to somebody from Point Michel. I met with him, and I said to him, I have a deal with
Mhm.
Olympus, and again, I have all these documents. Is the truth, and I want to open an endoscopic clinic in Roseau in Dominica.
Mhm.
And he said to me that nah, the Chinese is going to do something like that. That's true. That's the truth. He can come forward and try to challenge me, and that's fact. Um, so pretty much said they don't need that, and I
But
had
I
already.
guess I'm confused. Wait, I'm confused. So even if, let's suppose the Chinese,
Mhm.
the Chinese were going to do that, were they saying that there couldn't be two?
No, what I found out later on is they didn't want Dominicans involved in any of this.
Oh.
That's what it comes down to, right? And the only reason I went to endoscopy is a friend of mine was having a lot of reflux and other problems and had to end up in
Mhm.
Florida to get
Mhm.
a endoscopy.
Mhm.
So it blew my mind that these things were not available. So
Right.
I was trying to bring things along that could help the country, not to make money. And that's another thing I wanted folks to understand. So in 2015, this is actually laughable. When Erica happened,
Mhm.
I got an email. No one signed it, but it was from the health ministry, whatever, say that they don't need my help in Dominica. They would advise me not to come. Um,
After the hurricane, after Erica?
Erica, yeah, I still went, but you know what I found out? Somebody on on the labor side said to me later on, the reason why they didn't not want me to come to Dominica is because I called the prime minister the devil at a at the UN conference earlier that year. Who knows? but again, that was when they stopped me, and I had all the medicines. I had a huge suitcase. I paid $150 to get that suitcase to Dominica, and they wanted to confiscate it. They wanted to take it. I said, absolutely not. I'm here to help. And that's when they were taking everybody's stuff to put it at the Windsor Park. So I fought that. I had them on tape. I said, you're not taking my bag. I set up camp. I set up camp at Fort Young Hotel. The young nurse that came with me, we put things in bags. And then we went and we distributed, just the two of us, we distributed it to different clinics. And I felt I played my part. That was the same time I had sent down that container that was rejected, right? And I can tell you
Wait,
that,
a
yeah, yeah,
container
yeah, yeah.
was rejected?
Oh yeah, the container was valued over $1 million. I had about 50 wheelchairs in there. I had 10,000 colostomy bags. Actually, that was actually donated. Um, there were a lot of things in that container that I sent
What?
down. Yeah, yeah. I'm not making that up. Um, so a lot of that went on, you know, and folks were sort of, happy that I got sort of rejected, and to this day I don't have my license, and then folks are wondering, well, why didn't he get his license? I can tell you exactly what I sent to St. Vincent is exactly what I sent to Dominica. I got my license in St. Vincent. I did not get it in Dominica. I still have my license in St. Vincent. I don't have it in Dominica. And Dominicans have to understand that those who thought that I was trying to make money don't understand, obviously, my achievement up here, one, and two, don't understand that they're the ones that have lost at the end of the day,
Oh my
because what I
God.
could have done to help would have been, you know, helpful to them. I get 5 or 6 consults a week now. I was telling you before this how many
From
I got
Dominican
this
people
week. This week, even
begging.
yesterday, right? So it's shameful because Dominicans are suffering. The doctors reach out to me, the nurses reach out to me. All this started because the nurses came to me. This whole thing started when I went down to give a lecture at the hospital. I was invited to give a
Mhm.
lecture. People forget that. The nurses waited for me afterwards and pulled me aside and said, "You need to represent us." I didn't know nothing about what was going on in Dominica. And the nurses came to my talk because they had to leave their district to come down to listen to my talk. I give a trauma talk
Mhm.
all day.
Mhm.
And the nurses said they need help. The doctors are not showing up. This is not, they don't have this, they don't have that. So I started speaking on their behalf. And I
Yeah.
went on Q95. That was the first time I went on Q95. And the folks said, people were calling and say that I'm not a real doctor, one. Two, if I'm a doctor, they should take my license away. People are still
What?
calling for them to take my license away up here.
What?
Yes, yes,
What are you
yes,
talking about?
yes. Listen, man, there's so many things that have gone on that, and Dominicans are suffering, suffering. Young people are dying,
And
and I
people
wish
are
I
calling
could do more.
every week for support, calling
Yeah,
you personally for
yeah,
support.
yeah.
And meanwhile, folks you're saying are trying to get your license,
They they they,
whatever it is.
they have no they have
They
no
have no they have no
yeah,
path, they have no
yeah.
grounds, but just the idea that people would be thinking about that is so pathological to
Right. In
me.
2018 and 2019, Denise and I went down to set up a wound clinic. They
What?
went on they went on the radio and told them, don't go to our clinic. That the Chinese ship was coming. This is a fact. I'm not making this up. We set up a tent in Point Michel. We had such a good turnout. People from all over, Petit Soufre, they came. We saw wounds. People that would have been in the ICU up here
Right, right,
are
right.
walking the streets with this bobo, and
Wow.
we treated everyone. We took blood pressure. We were supposed to distribute food. We had gone to Week Church, and we had
Mhm,
bought food for elderlies in Point Michel.
mhm.
We were so exhausted by 2:30, we couldn't even do that. We saw so many patients. Zenita can tell you. Um, Jolly, I forgot her first name. She had just gotten back to Dominica. She's she's an endocrinologist. She's a diabetic doctor.
Mhm,
And Dr. Sam Christian was there with
mhm,
us,
mhm.
right? And people came and we saw them and we saw them. But the nurse, and if she's listening, I hope she listens well, that was supposed to come and help us,
Mhm.
that I had sent the computer to and everything else, she said that her supervisor said she's not allowed to come out and help us. While we had to help the people for free. Yeah. Yeah. So if we want to get into that, we can get into that. But that's a whole other story that I have so much more to talk about on that.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
When you went home this year when I met you, what are some of your thoughts? I saw you posted uh, like a little bit of, you
Yeah.
know,
The last time I went home was in 2020 to bury my dad, right before COVID.
uh-huh.
So it was about 4 years. In 2019, I wrote a departure post. It's out there somewhere in social media land.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad told me, don't come back to Dominica.
Mm.
My dad told me this place is not worth coming back to.
Oh
Because
my
my dad was a very,
straight
vocal, straight,
straight
yeah, yeah.
speaking. Mm-hmm.
And the reason why he said that is, and I talked about it, the violence. When we had that wound clinic, some guy wanted to physically fight me. And I just felt, I never felt, I did not feel safe in 2019 when we were there last. And it just seems like the friendly camaraderie
Right,
that we
right,
knew was no longer
right,
there.
right.
So my dad is like, don't come back, more. And then, obviously he fell sick. I had to
Yeah.
go back and spend time with him, and then he passed. But going back this time, I didn't know what to expect
Mm-hmm.
because a lot had changed. I I had become obviously more vocal,
Mm-hmm.
in and I know Z she was worried about, she and a lot of other people were worried about me going to Dominica.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, it's my home.
It's your
You know,
home. It's
they
home.
want to persecute and prosecute. They can do whatever they want,
Right.
but I will not be silenced,
Yeah.
right? And you know, I have friends on the other side. You know,
Like,
and actually, I will say this: I ran into Joseph Isaac and Edgar Hunter, right?
mm,
Let me rewind. We pulled up at Bullseye Pharmacy, and Kenneth Daru, right, shook his hand.
people you went to school with, right?
Yes, I
You
shook his
folks
hand,
you were
and
comrades with.
I shook his hand, and I said, hey man, he's like, yeah, people say, I said, yeah, man, it's all good, it's all good. At the end of the day, it's good. I'm not here to.
Right.
I ran into Jared Jean-Jacques. We went to school together. Also, we were very, very close growing up. He's the one that said to me, we met. Hey man, he said, man, you throwing some big stones, and he walked, and then he walked away. It was
Mm-hmm.
nothing confrontational, because I
Mm-hmm.
think at that stage, compared to the guy who wanted to fight me, that guy
Right.
was just an ignoramus in the street.
Yeah.
These guys, I think, have a little more, of whatever. I met Edgar and Joseph. We were like this, right? As a matter of fact, every time I used to go down, we would meet at Fort Young for drinks, and we
Mm-hmm.
were close.
Mm-hmm.
But I ran into them at the festival, right?
Mm-hmm.
It just happened. I was literally sitting there. My feet was hurting, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm sitting there, and Edgar runs into me, and then he calls Joseph, and then it was not like old times. I could you could tell, and then we had a good conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Actually we had an intellectual conversation,
Mm-hmm.
and then that was it. I went my way. It was literally 15 minutes. I went my way. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But I could tell you, the Dominica that I just experienced is nothing like I have seen before, in terms of the damage, the psychological and
Mm-hmm.
economic damage that has
Mm-hmm.
happened. There was a time when people would um, ask you for a drink,
Mm-hmm.
ask you for $5. No, people want $20.
You want more
They
now?
want more,
Mm-hmm.
right? And folks are not working,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody has a story,
Yeah.
and
A
and and
heavy story. Heavy
and and,
story.
and one wants you to feel sorry. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
oh my God, this is bad. This
Mm-hmm.
is this is bad. They're not lying. They're
Mm-hmm.
just doing it in silence.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So I did not go down there to pick up no placard and go in the streets like people.
Right.
People were
Right.
calling me out. I was not there for
Saying what?
that.
Saying
Yeah,
what? Like you should be in the streets,
yeah. But see,
protesting.
we came for several things.
Mm-hmm.
I came for the fest. We came actually for Zenita's mother, right? It
Mm-hmm.
was her 95th birthday,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's one bird. Festival, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And to enjoy Dominica,
Of course,
but
right. To enjoy your home.
also from a psychosocial, play on things, to look
Mm-hmm.
around,
Yeah.
to understand, to see what
Mm-hmm.
people are going through.
Mm-hmm.
One of the most dynamic persons I met was the young lady that was selling the plants in Roseau.
Mm-hmm.
I love that woman because I sensed her energy. She
Mm-hmm.
does not want no handout,
Mm-hmm.
right? She's there and she's hustling and she knows what she wants,
Yeah.
right? And then on the other hand, there's people that just don't want anything. They're just there,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So I was paying attention to all that. I ran
Mm-hmm.
into a lot of people,
Mm-hmm.
and when what people don't realize is, I'm sure you do it through the lens, the psychological
Can't
lens.
help. You can't help but
It,
do it.
it exactly, and I
Mm-hmm.
was doing some of that myself to see what
Yeah.
was really going on. So
Yeah.
when folks are saying, well, you didn't go take a placard, they've missed the point of
Mm-hmm.
all of this. There, and what I saw also is the poison in the entertainment, because I think that's where the entrapment is. And I was on a bus, and this young girl, schoolgirl, was upset that the bus driver turned off this nasty music,
Mm-hmm.
and the bus
Young
driver
girl.
turned it back on because she
Mm-hmm.
was upset.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a high school kid going to school,
Mm-hmm.
and that's when I realized, wow, you know, the rhythm, it gets you.
The
The
poison is in the
rhythm
wood.
pulls you, right.
Yeah.
I
That's it.
I started saying the words, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh shoot, that's what it's saying.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
then you started seeing, oh my God, this is what's going on.
Yep.
It's the youths,
Insidious.
the,
It's
right?
insidious.
So the issue of taking a packet and walking the streets is one thing, but
Yeah.
the issue right now is the youths.
Mm-hmm.
The youths don't know better.
Mm-hmm.
What they know here now is what they know.
Mm-hmm.
And do they want direction? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But I could tell you that's who you have to target.
That's right.
That's who you have to target. And
That's
that's what I
right.
was trying to tell folks is, I'm talking to folks. I met these three young boys from SMA
Yeah.
where I went to school, where I taught.
Mm-hmm.
And they were fifth formers, and they
Mm-hmm.
said they want to be hucksters and go to Guada.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
fifth formers, graduated high school,
Right.
wants to be hucksters, going to Guada. I'm not saying nothing's wrong with huckstering, but what are they talking about?
I know. That did not used to be the first career option for
Right.
fifth owners. Yeah.
So that's when I realized this is dangerous because the next generation is in trouble.
Yeah.
And that's why I said we need small groups. We need small groups to bring some economic empowerment to
Mm-hmm.
these folks, because I think at the end of the day, people wonder, well, why is crime up? Why is
That's
this up? And they don't
that's
realize it's all intertwined. It's
that's right.
all meshed in together. I'm telling you, man, it's folks. I wish I could just go and employ a lot of folks down there,
Mm-hmm.
but it has to be done strategically. It has to be,
Mm-hmm.
because the government is involved in everything. The power
Mm-hmm.
reps are involved in everything.
Yeah.
People want to know,
Everything.
yeah, people want to know, who are you? Why are you here? Why
Mm-hmm.
are you walking over here?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And some of the young police officers I saw, they look like they were 15, 16 years old.
Mm.
And I said, this is a problem. So I was not just there partying and enjoying. I was looking at the
Mhm.
system and how it's built in the
Mhm.
last several years. And I can tell you from 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017.
Mm.
I went back every single year 2 or 3 times.
Mhm.
And it's palpable. The difference is palpable, and it's so worrisome what's next if this does not turn around for this generation, for that generation?
Well, you said a lot of what I thought, you know. You said a lot of what I thought. I was very distracted myself with my dad's funeral and family reunion and the festival, but I don't know that many people would be rushing. I don't know why as a young person I would be rushing to stay. You know, I would be trying my best to leave.
They are. They're
Mhm.
they're they're they're, they're living,
Mhm.
and again, it's folks are rushing, and
Mhm.
it's not just the young folks, the professional, the 30-40-year-old folks want to leave also.
Mhm.
The
If they're
doctors,
going to survive, they
the
must. If they're
doctors,
going
the
to survive.
listen. When I found out what doctors make in Dominica, my jaw dropped, and they get 6 months contracts. So you can't go to the bank for a loan because you have a 6 months contract. Who's going to give you anything? That's what they're
6
doing.
months? Like they're
That's
hiring them 6 months at a time?
and every 6 months you have to renew your contract. That is that
What's
is
going
that is
on?
that is criminal.
What is
And
going
I
on?
I don't mean to brag, but I make in 2 weeks what a doctor makes in a year. I mean that is sad. That's heartbreaking. You know what I mean? When I found out what some of this, and when when I heard what a doctor makes in a year in Dominica, I mean, and they had no time. They have no time off.
None.
They're working them to the, and then
And so so we're
folks are gonna say,
wondering
oh,
why people are not getting proper care. We're wondering why people are not getting proper
but you know
care.
why people say, oh, you over here in New York, you're doing this, you're doing that, you're saying you blah blah blah, and you know what I mean. But they don't understand that I love Dominica. I am empathetic. I am empathetic. I, I,
First.
I, I, I see people. Listen, every consult I got when I was down there, I
Mhm.
addressed. I People asking me, "Where's my blood pressure cuff?" I'm like, I didn't come here for that,
Mhm.
you know. But I
Mhm.
answered every question. The lady who
Mhm.
wanted me to come to her house, she needs a neurologist. I'm not a neurologist.
Yes. Yes.
The lady with which her child has an inguinal hernia that they should
Mhm.
fix. You know, all these things. I addressed it. But I could tell you in the last 2 weeks,
Mhm.
it's been overwhelming to me because I
Mhm.
have a lot of responsibility up here.
Of
You know what
course.
I mean? And then people are bombarding me 1 o'clock in the morning. You know, it's and that's another thing. The state and the entitlement has become an issue.
I know.
They really think that
I
you have to
know.
give them and you have to answer them and you have to do it now.
I know.
We have a problem. We have a huge socioeconomic, psychological, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
problem in Dominica now.
Yeah. Yeah.
The health issue is one thing, but
It's a symptom. It's a manifestation of all
how
of
do you
the
come out?
happening. Yeah.
How do you take the youth right now and say, hey, you have to come out of this nasty music, vulgarity, alcohol infused rage? How do you do that?
That's what it is, you know. That's what it is.
How do
It's a
you
lot
do
of
it?
rage. Mhm.
How do you
It's a
do it?
lot of rage.
Right? And then folks are saying, well, oh, the crime rate, oh, look at where you live in New York. It's worse. It's this, it's that. Not understanding that, yes, I speak about the violence up here. I'm on the
Mhm.
news, I do that, all that stuff.
Mhm.
But that does not excuse what's happening in
Mhm.
Grand Bay, in Roseau, and all these other
Mhm.
places.
Mhm.
It's a symptom
It
of the
is.
society that has developed
Yeah.
because of this dirty politics,
Yeah.
politics of division and
Yeah.
confusion. That's what it is.
It's that simple, you know. It is that simple. It
Yeah,
is that simple. It is that simple. The
yeah,
end.
yeah,
It is that simple.
yeah. But
Well,
I will continue to try the
mhm.
best that I can. But the people collectively they have to stand up.
That's it.
You know, we always looking for a Messiah.
Yep.
We
Yep.
always looking for that savior,
Yes.
right? And you pick one person,
Mhm, mhm,
and that's how we
mhm.
ended up in that situation that we
Yep.
are.
Absolutely.
You know, sometimes you don't need one person, sometimes you need the collective.
You need a group. Yes.
Exactly.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Well, we're going to have to watch and see how that evolves.
Yeah.
And I definitely pray that it works out somehow for our higher good. But we
Well,
have
I think
to involve
no politician anywhere in the corner of the world should be in power for eternity,
none, none,
and it should never
none,
happen.
none. It's not
You know
good
what I mean?
for the people, nor
Yeah.
is it good for even that person.
Right.
None. It's not good. And so we have decided to run this experiment on ourselves,
Yeah.
see if we can somehow make it work
Hmm.
where everybody else has failed. Yeah. So, in a way, we have to reap the rewards of that and feel the burn. There are many people who will not change until they have hurt enough. And
Well, and when does that, to
when does that
me,
happen?
to me, yeah, it's there are some people who refuse to friend me on Facebook because of who I am,
Yeah.
but they will ask me questions on Facebook Messenger about their medical condition,
Because they're desperate for their health. Yeah.
and I'm like, that says a lot.
Absolutely.
That says a lot. You know, there was a young man that just passed in Point Michel. He was about 3 4 years younger than me. I knew him very well growing up. You know, the family reached out to me. You know, may he rest in peace.
Hmm.
And I spoke to his daughter maybe 5 6 months ago. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is there was no to me. The daughter, the family needed support,
Hmm. As in
palliation,
community based, like networks. Yeah.
palliative care, hospice
Hmm.
care.
Hmm. Hmm.
These are the things
Hmm.
that we were doing in St. Vincent.
Yeah.
These are the things I wanted to do in Dominica,
Mm.
right? We were doing chemotherapy infusions in St. Vincent,
Wow.
right? We had an
Hmm.
oncologist from Cuba,
Hmm.
right? These are the things I wanted to do in Dominica. Zenita and I wanted to have a 5-bed palliative center
Hmm.
so people can die comfortably.
In peace.
It's hard to talk about death,
Yeah.
but first of all, no one should die alone,
Yeah.
right? But comfort, redirecting care towards comfort
Hmm.
amongst to be with your loved one in a nice,
Hmm.
comfortable space is so important.
Hmm.
You know, when my dad was on his dying bed, people in the village were like, "Why aren't you taking him to the hospital? Why aren't you taking him to the hospital?" Not understanding I know what I know.
Hmm.
Like, the hospital will not cannot
Right.
fix him.
You're
He's
gonna
gonna
right.
die. I want him
Yeah.
to die in his bed
Yeah.
comfortably.
Yeah.
And these are the kind of things that Doc Dangleben and Nurse Z, we
Hmm.
want to do. We want to help.
Hmm.
It doesn't have to be not just the bobo.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? I deal with physiatry, sports medicine, physical medicine. We deal with all of these things up there.
Hmm.
Zenita's done hospice care. She's done
Hmm.
lymphedema therapy. We've
Hmm.
done all these things. And all we're saying is, you know what? We wanted to help our people.
Hmm.
And our people told us no. And
Because.
because they believe they believe a lie that they've been told.
Hmm.
You know
Hmm.
what I mean?
Hmm.
I mean, I'm hoping that in my lifetime that change can
Hmm.
take place, that we can see a better Dominica, man.
We
I
need
you
it.
know, yeah,
We need it. That system, in my view, like I've said it many times, it's run its course. It's way past due. Like you talk about a bobo, it's festering. It's not good for the
yeah,
country. It's not good for anybody
yeah,
at this point. It's
yeah.
not good. It's been there too long.
It's too
Yeah.
too long, man. And
Yeah. Yeah.
and and again, the medicine has come so far where I am,
Hmm.
and to see where things are in Dominica,
That is so distressing. It's very distressing.
It's
And
it
it's not because there is no expertise. It's just that the expertise is being rejected.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
If the expertise doesn't fit in to the ideology, the expertise gets
yeah,
rejected. And so the
yeah,
people end up suffering.
yep,
Who's that good for? Who's that good for?
yeah, yeah. So when, but folks look at you, they look at me, and they say, oh, they up here, they have their money, they this, but they don't understand the journey. You know what I mean? I shared some of it, but we did not. I did not
Exactly.
just wake up and I was a surgeon or I was chief of surgery or
Exactly.
trauma medical director. It was a journey
Absolutely.
of pain,
Sacrifice.
sacrifice,
Yes.
hard
Yes.
work,
Yes.
and then folks just want to look at you and say, "Oh, he has money and he doesn't want to
Yes.
give. He
Yes.
doesn't want to do this. He doesn't want to do that."
You've got to
And
be willing to put in the time and the
you
effort.
you have hard work. It's you got to do hard work, but it has to be smart work, knowing where you're going.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Like they say, you do the same thing over and over and with the same result. That's insanity.
Yes.
You
Yes.
see what I mean? And
Yes.
and we have to understand what's going on in Dominica.
Hmm.
It has been a very, it's a strategy that has been used. To me, it actually,
Diligently implemented against the people.
yes,
Diligently
yeah,
implemented. And it's
implemented,
been
yes,
slow and gradual, but it's been
yeah,
toxic.
yeah. I wrote a piece when I was coming up. I published it. I put it out there. But I wrote a second piece. I never published. I did a short video about it. It's about the brain drain also.
Hmm.
I,
Hmm.
I wrote it, but I never published it because I think a lot of it has to do with the brain drain that happened, that folks like me, etc., ended
Left a
up,
vacuum.
there's a vacuum. But I think that the government realized that also and continue to push people
Mhm.
out that could make a difference in Dominica.
They
And the
definitely
ones
did
that they
not make
couldn't,
it good enough for them to stay. They definitely did not employ any strategies to nurture their people and to keep their
right,
people. Yeah.
right, and the ones that they kept are the ones that were corruptible.
Yeah.
And I say that I'm not going to mention any names, but they were bought.
Hmm.
And
Many,
if you can,
many
if
were,
you
and they know it.
right, and if you're a Christian and you believe in the story of Judas, 30 pieces of silver, a lot of Judases in Dominica that you people I never thought would have taken 30 pieces of silver have taken this 30 pieces of silver and doing wrong against their own people. And I think the brain drain is so bad. So education, that's my passion, right?
Hmm.
I was a high school teacher. I continue to teach a lot in the medical world. I write books. But I think most communists and most dictatorship, let me use that word, most dictatorship regime puts a mask on education. And I think that has happened in Dominica. I say, well, all this, remember what Scary said, every household will
Every
have a college
household
graduate, right? But the educational value in Dominica has deteriorated
went
compared to
down,
what it used
went
to be.
down, went
It's
down.
it's di- it's a diluted version of what we
Absolutely.
used to have,
Absolutely.
right?
That is beyond
So,
question.
but they're using that idea of universal education.
Yeah.
They're using that idea of universal. I mean, these guys they lie about it. There is documents that show that Dominica has all these beautiful hospitals and all these state of the art first
I
world things,
know. I
right?
saw a video recently of reasons why Jamaica should be afraid of Dominica, and they're talking about stuff that nobody has ever seen.
Never seen. And and
Nobody has
and,
ever
and
seen.
listen, Dominica is naturally beautiful. We know that.
And that is it. And that's always going to be
Right,
true. That's what
right.
saving
But
your skin.
a lot of these accolades and stuff, that's passport money also paying for that. And
Absolutely.
people don't even realize that.
Yeah.
There is a machinery
Marketing.
of fake websites also
Absolutely.
that these guys are paying to
Yeah.
generate information. It's so hurtful. It's so sad.
So
You know?
pathological is the word. It's pathological because the same amount of time and energy I could be using to do this,
Yeah.
couldn't I also be using that same time and energy to create good, right?
Exactly.
To create what's
Listen,
in people's best interest? It's pathological.
it is, and but it's gonna take a lot of us to make that
Absolutely.
difference. I'm not ready to throw in the towel on Dominica, and I want to see. Healthcare is my thing, medicine is my thing, and I think that will be where I would focus in terms of help. But I think on a whole, all of us, the drain, the brain drain,
Yeah.
need to come together.
The
And
sucking sound that left.
yes, the sucking sound, I like that. The sucking sound
Mhm.
that needs to come together and say, you know what, enough is enough. Because I could tell you, my dad, I had his echo,
Mhm.
because he was a righteous man that spoke up even to the end.
Mhm.
He's dying on his dying bed. He spoke up. What are we gonna? What are we? If we go silent into this night, what are we telling that generation?
Exactly. Exactly.
My father, guys like Patrick Deloney,
Mhm.
guys like Mr. McGlaw, all these guys,
Mhm.
and all the other women too, not just men. What are
Mhm.
we telling them? And the generation before that? Why don't we go back to the 50s and the 60s and that revolutionary mindset
Mhm.
of anti-colonialism? People are
Yeah.
talking about post-colonization. No, it's neo-colonialism.
Yes. 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 I mean,
It's
I saw a picture the other day, and it's right now. It's just revolting to me. We've got a little Dominica flag. I don't remember what it was about. And these days, this is the new imagery.
oh, the one
You
with
got
Chinese.
your
Yeah,
Dominica flag and your little red flag over there. I mean, what is that
yeah,
about?
yeah, yeah. You see, but you see, when we were kids, right? If you take a dime and your parents didn't catch you, Sunday you're gonna try to take that quarter,
Yep. Yep. You're
right?
moving up
Because
to
you
the
want to get
dollar.
you want
That's
to get
not.
a
Yeah.
tablet and a
Yeah.
tamarind
Yeah.
balls,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then the dollar shows up on the dresser 2 weeks from now. You're gonna try to take that because there's a little action going on by the disco. That's what these guys have done, They
I mean, it is
tested
so disgusting.
they tested the water, right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
Panama Papers,
Yeah. Yeah.
Madrique,
That was not enough for the people. That's not
Monfared,
enough. Mhm.
and Dominicans are still there.
Yeah.
And when they got away with that, they're like,
Yeah.
we can get away with
What else can
anything.
we not get away with? What else can we
Exactly.
not
And
get away with? Yeah.
that's what has happened with our Dominica. And folks can say, well, oh, he doesn't like scary. It's not
It's
about
not
that.
that.
You know what I mean? I'm comfortable up here. I'm very comfortable.
Right. Right.
I'm very
Right.
comfortable.
Right.
We love our
I mean, come
country.
on.
I mean, my dad's gone, my mom's gone, my brother's gone. But Dominica is still Dominica, and while we
Yeah,
have life, we should change that trajectory from this dictatorship
I agree.
that has engulfed Dominica.
I agree.
And we need solutions, guys.
I
We need
agree.
solutions. And I can tell you this: for the last 5 6 years, I've spoken about Garveyism. I've spoken about self-determination. I've
Mm-hmm.
spoken about economic empowerment in terms of what we need to do. I've
Mm-hmm.
come up with ideas. I've brought a lot of ideas forth. People think that when you bring an idea forth, not just ideas a dime a dozen. I actually
Mm-hmm.
implement things. I put it into action. People
Mm-hmm.
think that I'm trying to take their money away from them, not
Mm-hmm.
realizing that I'm trying to use my money to
Mm-hmm.
to show a path of economic empowerment.
Yeah,
And that's where we need to go. We need to use what we have, our resources,
absolutely.
to
Yes.
educate and uplift and say, you
Mm-hmm.
know what, guys, let's do this.
Mm-hmm.
Small projects were so important to the development of the Caribbean
Yeah.
back in the 70s and the 80s, that
Mm-hmm.
whether it's agriculture, whether it's fisheries, everything now is being manipulated by the
From the
parliamentary
top down.
representative.
From the top down. Yeah.
Exactly.
Finding ways to become enmeshed in people's day-to-day
Yeah.
lives.
And what's
You
his name? the village councils, right? Village council elections are coming up in Point Michel and these places. It's become laughable.
It's ridiculous.
So we have to come together. The drain, I forgot the term that you just used.
The sucking sound.
The sucking sound that left needs to get
Yeah.
together, and because we're too reactionary.
Yeah.
In oh, a hurricane coming, let's go, let's build a somebody needs a GoFundMe, let's do this, let's do this, let's do it. And we never truly prepared
Like the
for
planning ahead, the planning
right.
for the probability or
Yeah.
possibility.
Yeah. When we talk about
That's
growing our own funds, having our own
Mm,
banks, having our own
mm,
this, having our own that,
mhm.
people think that I sound crazy. But guess what? I can tell you there's some things I will not talk about tonight,
Yeah.
but there's groups of us that have gotten together
Yes.
and we've done some powerful things that
Yes.
when it comes to the public, they'll be like, oh wow. But
Right.
eventually we want to teach, we want to show that we did it.
Right.
It can be done. It can be done. You know what I mean? So I think it's time to
It's
come
time.
together.
Like it's been enough. I think that
Yeah.
experiment, I think that's been enough. And I'm not seeing the value for the amount that we've lost. That's my biggest hurt.
No
That
value.
kind of system, I don't see the value, that's commensurate with the amount that we have lost.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just not seeing it. And so
Yeah.
I can continue to say, yes, let's keep going with that. And why
Yeah.
would you, again, who in their right mind wants to believe that any system that's been there for this long is in anybody else's best interest? It just doesn't work
Right.
in folks'
It,
best
it,
interest.
it doesn't work. No one should be in power for that long.
No, no.
And well, listen. It's.
I mean, even the people who are in power should understand this.
Right.
Like I say, and release the people from you.
Right.
Okay,
But
you found ways to manipulate, they're easy, like say, like think of it like relationally. You find somebody who's easy, they're a pushover. Okay,
right.
so I mean, you can continue to take advantage of a pushover, but that says a lot about who you are.
Right.
A
Yeah.
lot
Well,
about who you are.
and I think it has, and that's why in 2014 when we were at the UN, I coined I used the word sociopath, and people thought I was a little crazy, but I said certain things, and I think once you get into this category, this narcissistic, that's more your specialty in terms of the psychology. But once you start acting the way that some of these folks are acting, it 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 tells you who they are
It's very clear.
psychologically.
Very clear. It's very
Yeah,
clear.
yeah,
It is
and that's
very
why.
clear.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's been a lot of people like that in history,
Absolutely.
that
And they've taken similar paths.
yeah,
They've taken
yeah,
similar paths,
yeah,
but
yeah,
it is not in the collective's best interest.
never. And history has told us how it ends. You
Absolutely.
know,
That's the other piece. And I'm like, come on,
yeah,
we choose this path.
it never truly ends well.
It doesn't
I
end
think there
well.
were very very few dictators that believe. Maybe Pinochet
That
of
made
of
it to
of
their grand
Chile,
old
but yeah,
ages, It's like,
yeah,
come on.
yeah,
Because at a certain point, seriously, because people have souls, so there's a piece inside of all of us that is going to resist being
right,
overpowered and being
yeah,
manipulated and fooled. You see it in relationships. I don't know that I can see couples where you had somebody who was physically abusive. Do you see
hmm
old men physically abusing their wives? I mean, at a certain point that stops
right,
because the other person says no mass
hmm
or they walk
yeah.
away.
I've
You know.
been I've been reading, I've been doing a lot of history. I've been reading a lot of history, especially from Point Michel, where I'm from,
Mhm.
in terms of what it used to be.
Mhm.
And I can tell you, it's interesting as I read some of these court reports of during
Mhm.
slavery. The hangings, the
Mhm.
beatings. How many
Mhm.
lashes slaves got, and things like that.
Mm.
And there's documents now, because obviously they've opened a lot of that
Right.
up in the British archives. So I've been
Mhm.
reading a lot of that. You could actually go in and see that. I hope you're still working on the paper. I don't know what that means. I was reading some of the comments. You know,
Yes.
I've been reading about some of these punishments that these slaves got. And
Mhm.
And it blew my mind that how long did it take? Some people died. Some people got 100 lashes
Right.
and then died 3 days later from the
Yeah.
100 lashes,
Yeah.
right? And people would steal a chicken and get hanged for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm reading the trial of Kwashi. Kwashi was a
Mm-hmm.
runaway slave. So I'm reading this and I'm like, man, our people went through a lot,
A whole lot.
so much, and look at where we are today. After
Mm-hmm.
all what, right? They
Mm-hmm.
killed Bala. They stuck his head
Yeah.
up in Roseau and all kinds of. I'm reading up on
Atrocities.
the Collioure uprising and the first revolution in Granby in the 1700s.
Mm.
It's amazing the history. I'm finding out that Point Michel never grew sugar. There was never,
Mm.
cane. Point Michel was coffee.
Mm.
All the estates in Point Michel was coffee. I
Coffee.
knew I know every plantation there. I know the amount of slaves that every plantation
Mm-hmm.
had. I know the tonnage of coffee that
The
they produce
coffee. Yes.
annually. So I'm gathering all this information because what we need to spark in the next generation is
Mm-hmm.
look at where we came from.
Self-sufficiency. Do it
Why are
yourself.
we going back to
Yeah.
neocolonialism?
Yeah, yeah, and
So,
walking into it blindly like a Pied Piper, and they're just mesmerized and walking into it. I'm like, come on, wake up, stop,
mm,
stop, stop. But I do agree with you that the people who know must continue to speak up. The people who know and see you're doing yourself a disservice to just go mum about it, to be quiet about it,
yeah.
and just pretend as if well, I'm okay, so they'll figure it out. I don't think that's helpful.
No, when I do my violence talk up here, I talk to the generation, the 40 and 50-year-old,
Mhm.
especially those who act like they're still 20.
Right.
I want to appeal to that group in Dominica because they are part of that problem that have created
Absolutely.
what the kids are dealing
Absolutely.
with right now.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
they have not stood up, they have not
Yes.
spoken up, right,
Yes.
the way they
Yes.
should, and
Yes.
now their children are not even seeing the damage that they created, and then
Absolutely.
it's going to become a vicious cycle. So these are
Absolutely.
the kind of things that when I try to engage these folks, I'm like, you know what? When you say I'm not into politics or I'm going to be silent about this, you don't understand the damage that has done.
You don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
And politics is life. If you're not involved in politics, I mean,
Yeah.
all of these rules and laws get passed, you feel the burn. What do you mean you're not involved in
Yeah.
politics? This is your
Yeah.
life. This is
Yeah.
your life.
Yeah.
Oof. Well, Doc, we could
Yep.
go on for another 30 minutes, but I want to switch towards the end.
Hmm.
Night, we're going to wrap up, but I want to do a little something with you.
Oh
I
boy.
want to, as you think about your journey, right, from
Hmm.
Dominica, you call him a coward, but you also predate the coward to the boy who read a lot of books, who was actually the book dealer.
Hmm.
That's a little boy I'm seeing. What as you look back, right? Your journey from that little boy, the
Hmm.
bookman, to the bookman now. Yeah. What would you say have been maybe some of your biggest joys in the process of becoming you, of becoming who you are today?
Oh well. The biggest joys,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not gonna get too much into it.
Mm-hmm.
My children, right,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously my accomplishments,
Mm-hmm.
right, because I don't want to take that for granted
Mm-hmm.
because it was a journey,
Yes.
a painful journey, right? It's like
Mm-hmm.
climbing that mountain top and getting
Mm-hmm.
on top and then catching your breath,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
these I think are important, more
Mm-hmm.
important to me than all the money that I have, all the wealth that I have. I'm not going to get
Mm-hmm.
into that. But that's also important too,
Yes.
because it goes a long way in doing certain things. And the
Absolutely.
reason why I say that, I emphasize that, is this: when I had no money, no one would sponsor me,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And I tell this to my kids: now that I can sponsor myself,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm an app developer. I have my own publishing book, right?
Yes.
So in terms of the question that you asked, I think there is the answer. I'm able to fund things that I could not have funded if I had not taken this route. And
You're
I would
able to
not be,
create
I
the
would not,
experience of life you want.
right. I would to publish these books. Remember, my
Yes.
first book got rejected 9 times,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
But now I don't need to wait for a publisher,
That's right.
right? So I think that's important, and that's important in terms of a
Absolutely.
lesson for everyone is you have to get where you're going
Yes.
sometimes to do what you need to do,
Yes. Yes.
right?
Yes.
So it's important. It's important. That is very important for me because
Mhm.
at one point I had 54 apps on the App Store. People didn't even know that,
Wow.
right?
Yes.
But I could tell you, I pitched to companies in California. I
Mm-hmm.
pitched to companies in New York, and I got
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
rejected, right?
Yeah.
So in terms of the question that you asked, it has come full circle
Mm-hmm.
in terms of the accomplishment. And it's a joy that I could sit and say, you know what? I want to do this and I
Mm-hmm.
can do it.
Yes.
You
Yes.
see what I mean? Because
Yes.
otherwise you sit in regret,
Yes.
right? And
Yeah.
and so my hard work, my failures makes me enjoy my success today even more,
Even more.
right?
Even more.
And again, remember I did not stress a dollar amount,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because
Mm-hmm.
I say this to my friends and family. It's more about wealth,
Mm-hmm.
and I know some folks don't like that term, generational wealth,
Yeah.
than the money that you make. You could make
Yeah.
good money. You could make good money and spend all of it
And
next
not
week.
keep it. It's not about how much you make, it's how much you keep. Yeah.
Right, right.
Mm-hmm.
How many properties do you own?
Mm-hmm.
Right? How many businesses do you have that's successful? And
Mm-hmm.
everything does not have to be successful. I have learned. I
Mm-hmm.
lost my print shop recently. I opened it. It
Yeah.
lasted a year. Right? But I
Mm-hmm.
could tell you that. And while we're on this, I want to say this. I know this. You have to go with the questions, but
Uh-huh.
those who did me wrong with my print shop were people that looked like me.
Mm-hmm.
People I was trying to give an opportunity stole from.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's all about the lessons.
You gotta learn. You're gonna learn today. Yeah.
Oh, I learned. I've learned a lot.
So next question. What have been some of your biggest pains or one huge pain along this journey?
Um, well, there's been a lot of pains.
Mhm.
My biggest pain in my whole journey was losing my mother.
Mm.
My
How
mother
old were
died at
you?
60. My mother died at 66.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to talk about, but I know I'm gonna tear up.
Mm-hmm.
But my
Mm-hmm.
mother died suddenly in a sleep on
Mm-hmm.
Mother's Day. So Mother's Day has never been the same.
Oof, I'm
That
sorry to
was
hear.
my biggest pain because I will tell you why though. See, my dad, I was there with my dad for 2 weeks before he died.
Mm-hmm.
My mom died in her sleep
Mm-hmm.
at 66, and it was Mother's Day, and I was on trauma call 10 years ago, 11 years ago, and I called in the morning before I started the rounds,
Mm-hmm.
and my dad said, "Oh, your mom went to church."
Mm-hmm.
Right? My day went to crap. I'm
Mm-hmm.
busy. As a matter of fact, one of my residents' grandmother had fallen and had a subdural hematoma, and
Mm-hmm.
that consumed my whole day.
Mm-hmm.
And I never called back.
Mm-hmm.
I never called back, and my mother died that night.
Mm-hmm.
And that has want to be one of because
Yeah.
that's why I say 2013 is one
Mm-hmm.
of the worst years of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you, I'm a party guy, but for
Mm-hmm.
the first 8 years before that, I
Mm-hmm.
really did not party. I really did not drink or anything like that. And
Mm-hmm.
I had to take that trek back to go down and bury my mother.
Yeah.
And that was a dark hole.
Yes.
That was I got to Puerto Rico and I was drunk already.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
could tell you it was just, and then I couldn't bring myself to go see my
Mm-hmm.
mother. So I'm on the couch with you now.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me was the darkest 2013
Yeah.
was the darkest moment in my life and in my
Mm-hmm.
career
Mm-hmm.
because when I came back that August, I got demoted.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a whole story. I sort of touched on it in because and that has to do with they knew what was coming and they
Mm-hmm.
did not want me to get promoted. So they took the education part away from me so somebody else could have gotten it.
Mm.
So August 2013, my mother died in May.
Mm-hmm.
August 2013, I made the decision to quit that job.
Yeah.
And that's when a lot of people don't know I went to Maine. I just
Mm.
left and I went to Maine.
Yes.
Cold Maine. And
Yes.
that's a whole year of just finding myself. But
Yes.
that was the hardest time. But when I
Yes.
came out from that, listen, I'm gonna tell you stuff I've never told anyone. I was 325 pounds.
Mm.
I was morbidly obese.
Yes.
I was pre-diabetic. Oh yeah, I was
Mm.
diagnosing myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, you know what? I have to get my act together. I gotta get my act together. And I have to leave Maine. I gotta leave Maine. So I
Mm-hmm.
left Maine and I put that Dangleben cap back on. I'm like, you know what? Screw this shit, man. You're bigger than this. You're better than this. Because
Yeah.
before this, I was traveling all over the country, giving lectures, doing
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And that
Mm-hmm.
whole thing had just eaten, I got
You needed
separated, I
to
go through a
recover.
divorce, all that just
Yeah.
ate at me. And so
Yes.
that was it in terms of
Yeah.
everything.
Mm-hmm.
My professional career, my
Mm-hmm.
personal. So that's the answer to the question that you asked
Yes.
in terms of I think that was the hardest. I've lost my father. I lost my brother suddenly
Mm-hmm.
last year. He was
Mm.
55, young guy.
Mm-hmm.
So, but one thing I do know is that's part of life.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
I've been a physician for coming on 24 years.
Mm-hmm.
As a trauma doc, I see a lot of
Mm-hmm.
stuff,
Mm-hmm.
but it never it never gets old
Yes.
because death is death no matter what. But
Yes.
when it's close to home, it's hard.
It's very hard. It's very hard.
Mm-hmm.
How did you tell me maybe two things that helped you move through that grief process?
Um, I think it has to go back through the journey, what I talked about,
Mm-hmm.
because I go through these moments,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Call it whatever you want, but I've always done that, even when I was a teenager,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's not a double life. It's just
Mm-hmm.
the way the mind works.
Yes.
One day I just woke up
Mm-hmm.
and I said, you know what? You need to get out of this, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I was peeing a lot at night.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
As a doctor, I know what that meant,
Right.
right? That's blood sugar.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, you need to lose the weight,
Yes.
right? So right there and then, I knew what was happening to me, and if I continued that way, where it would end up. So
Mm-hmm.
it was almost like a trigger. It was a trigger,
Yeah.
right? So I gave up. I gave up red meat. I did this. I did that, right? So I think that was the trigger,
Mm-hmm.
knowing, because I think sometimes but the trigger never goes off. You just
Right.
keep going and going and
Right.
going.
Right. 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 Almost like as if you're in a trance, but you've got to pull it. You've got to pull it.
You
You got
got
to
it,
do
right,
it. You got to
right.
do it
But I
now.
can tell you this:
Yeah.
when I was in Maine, I lived alone,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then I
Mm-hmm.
used to go back and forth to see the kids and all that stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
I think I realized that needed to change also.
Mm.
So when the trigger went off, I'm like, I gotta move. I gotta go. I gotta leave this environment. So I
Mm-hmm.
pulled myself out of that environment. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of people can do that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But I think that's what it is. And I think the way my head works,
Mm-hmm.
I can do many things at once.
Compartmentalize. Yes. Yes.
Right? So
Mhm.
I'm writing the book. I'm developing an app. I have 3 apps coming out.
Yes.
I'm able to do this. So
Yeah.
I think I leverage some of that
Mm-hmm.
in a crazy way
Mm-hmm.
to come out of it. And once I got to that path, and then I met Z.
Yes.
That's a whole other story. Yeah, but it's never easy when you're in the dark.
No, it's a dark night of the soul. It's very, very painful.
Yeah,
And some
yeah.
people don't come out of that hole.
You
Some people
don't
don't
come out.
come out of
Sometimes
it.
you don't come out of it, and
Yeah.
it's
You gotta fight.
yeah. You have to find
Mm-hmm.
but your support is important.
Oh, social support. Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
if you have somebody, if I'm 325 pounds.
Yes.
I love my IPA beers, you know. If you
Yes.
have somebody who just say, "Hey man, let's go have another one," that is not support,
Mhm. Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
That is not
Mhm.
support. That is somebody taking you down even
Right.
further and
Right.
further
Right.
and further, right? Because after you leave the bar and you go home,
Mhm.
you're home by yourself, you know, 325 pounds drunk,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So you need to find
Yeah.
people. You got to find level-headed people that's
Mhm.
gonna, you know, talk to you and say, "Hey,
Mm.
this is not," you know what I mean?
Pull you up.
But you have to be able, right? I'm preaching to the choir. You have to be willing
Okay,
to
I'm happy to hear you say it so that
you
people
have to
can
be
hear you say it.
you the individual have to be willing to accept it.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
think I came to accept that. Hey, this is, you know, you can, and everything fell in line. I went to York, Pennsylvania, and then they
Mhm.
came looking for me. I became a trauma medical director,
Look at that.
and like I
Yeah.
said, the rest is history.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, now based on your book dealer, little boy, all the way to author, Dr. Dale, right now, what do you never want to experience again?
That's a good one, because you know what, I have come to realize that living is proportions of opposites.
Mhm.
All
Mhm.
right,
Mhm.
so things will come and things will go.
Yes.
Um, well, my parents are gone. I experienced that.
Mhm.
Residency.
Mhm.
That's
Mm.
that. I,
Yeah.
surgical residency. I
Yeah.
wouldn't want to experience that again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, I really mean that. I had this cartoon AI thing that I did. I never put it out. 35 pages
Mhm.
of my experience during residency. Yeah. So I would stick with that. That would be my answer for that one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Okay.
that's a 5 hour conversation in of
Yeah.
itself, what
To
I
like.
went through during residency, because my training was 6 years. And when
Mm.
people say, "Oh, are you an ER doc?" No disrespect to
Mhm.
ER docs. ER
Mhm.
docs train for 3 years.
Mm.
Surgical residents do 5 years, and
Yes.
I did
Yes.
1 year specialty of trauma, so I did 6 years.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
All right. Next question is, what do you want moving forward? What do you want as you move forward?
Um, I think I want to give. That's interesting because I've gotten.
Mhm.
You know what
Mhm.
I mean?
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
what I have gotten is more than I ever expected.
Mm.
Right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
joke, you know, with folks that know me. I'm like, yeah, that guy in the Rav in Sibuli in La
Mhm.
Puente. You know, I mean,
Mhm.
who would have thought? Who would have thought?
Mhm.
Right?
Right.
Right? So that's where I'm at.
Mhm.
I want to give,
Mhm.
right? But I have given though. Don't
Yes.
get me wrong.
Yes. Yes.
But I'm at a stage where I want to give to those I think who don't ask too much.
Mm. And what is it that you want to give? What is the it?
Oh, what I have gained, whether it's financial,
Mhm.
whether it's financial,
Mhm.
where I can,
Right. Right.
but not give you $2 and say go get a drink.
Right. Right. Right.
I'm talking about upliftment and and the empowerment in
Mhm.
terms of projects, in terms of
Yes. Yes.
developing projects and putting things right into place. That's
Something that
what I'm
can
talking about.
grow. Something that could grow. Yeah.
Something like sustainability for the future.
Mhm.
Exactly. So people can, have self-determination. That's
Mhm.
what I think is important.
Yeah.
And that's
Very
what,
important.
I mean, seriously, that's what it is. And
Mhm.
also the educational aspects of medicine that I have gained, I want to
Mhm.
give that back.
Yeah.
I give Princess Margaret Hospital, China Friendship, whatever you want to call it, I gave them 52 I gave them 52 protocols, critical
Mm.
care protocols in 2015. I don't think they ever used it, they ever utilized it, even if they begged me for it. I want to be able to give. I know when I went to see the fire guys, yes, I knew I was going to meet the fire guys.
Mm-hmm.
because I know they're the ones that run EMS, and I knew I could give them a few things
Right.
that save
And you
life.
went from this time.
Yeah, well, yeah, but that's what I'm
Mm-hmm.
talking. People say, "Why didn't you go to the hospital? Why didn't you do this?" No, I'm giving it to the guys who go out in the ambulance to
Mm-hmm.
save a life, but I could do a lot more than that.
Yes. Yes.
So that's what I want to do.
All
To
right.
your answer to your question.
All right. Now, what is your biggest lesson based on your
Hmm.
experience?
The biggest lesson is never give up. Never give up, even when you're in the trenches,
Yes.
right? Because it's first of all, you have to have reason, you have to have purpose,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have to understand that there's challenges,
Mm-hmm.
and there are times you're gonna feel that you're such a failure
Mm-hmm.
that there is no better tomorrow,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? But I am telling you, I'm an example of more than that,
Yes.
right? So there was a purpose. You have to have purpose,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to convince yourself of that,
Yes.
right? You have to tell yourself that you're good, that you're
Yes.
great, that you can be great,
Mm-hmm.
right? You don't have to be a doctor, you don't have to be a lawyer, you don't have to be
Mm-hmm.
this, you don't have to be that, but you can be good, you can be honest, and you
Mm-hmm.
can work hard, and
Yeah.
you can get where you're going and be a decent human being. We have
Absolutely.
to be able to come to this country, for example,
Mm-hmm.
study what it has,
Mm-hmm.
the good,
Mm-hmm.
because there's a lot of bad around us here,
Absolutely. Yes.
right? And know how to navigate through that,
Mm-hmm.
because it will present itself to take you down. I
Yeah.
had opportunities. I've told this story. I had opportunity to sell drugs in New York.
Yeah.
One
Ooh.
of the guys I was tutoring math
Mm.
was a big time drug dealer. I didn't know that until the time he gave me a whole stash. He asked me he was gonna go to Switzerland if I could sell for him,
Yes.
right?
It's that life of opposites. It's that opposite, the
Yeah.
double
And
force,
then
the
this other
dual
guy in
force.
Brooklyn from
Yeah.
Brazil is telling me, "Oh, you're wasting time at school, man. You could be making 5,000 a month with me, blah blah blah."
Yeah. Yeah.
And I had to say no.
Yeah.
Stay on that path.
Mm-hmm.
$5.25 an hour,
Mm-hmm.
$6, right?
Yes.
You have to understand that, okay, you want to stay there, you can
Mm-hmm.
stay there.
Yes.
That's what you want. That's what you want. That's $6 an
That's
hour. That's
okay.
fine.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you
Mm-hmm.
want. But be
Mm-hmm.
good. Be
Yeah.
honest with
Yeah.
yourself.
Yes.
But if you want more, don't stay there. Keep
Mm-hmm.
going. It's easy. It's easy up here to take the
Yes.
wrong path, that wrong
Yes.
trajectory, right? Whether it's alcohol, whether it's drugs, right?
Mm-hmm.
I drink, but
Yes.
I drink on a social level,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I if when I was in undergrad, I was partying every weekend, I would
Yeah.
never have graduated magna cum laude with a
There you
degree in
go.
chemistry. You
There
got to
you
be
go.
able, you have to weigh things and look at things in such a way and say, hey, what do I want? Where do I want to get?
Mm-hmm.
And when you get there, build a path, drop a rope, give
Mm.
to
Right.
others, give
Yes.
to others, give to others what you wanted that no one gave to you.
Yeah. That's beautiful. That's
Yeah,
really beautiful. That's to me, that's a life well lived. You know, when we can do that, that's a life well lived.
yeah.
So I want to thank you, Doc, for sharing your story with us, y'all. Thank you all. You all have been very focused and steady with us. You all have held the line. We have over 30 people. I'm listening to your story right now. We've gone up to like 40 at times. And I
Yeah,
really am grateful. Again, for me, you're an example of Dominican. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
passionate about education, vocal, intelligent, resilient, persistent, speaking up, you
Yeah.
know,
You
and
have to speak up.
you've got to speak up. You've got to speak up.
Can't be
So
can't get
as you get ready to go, I want you to talk about an app that you and Z are working on. You
oh
told- you got to talk
yeah.
about, yeah.
Oh, you mean Eat for Living?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Because I have
I
a
want
couple
you
apps
to
out
hear
there.
about it.
Um
Oh, yes.
Eat for Living is coming out. It it hopefully will be out next week. It's really a multi-level platform that
Mm-hmm.
focuses obviously on wellness.
Mm-hmm.
One, we have a lot of people are doing the fasting. It works for some people, so we
Right.
have a fasting on there. If you want to fast for 8 hours, 10 hours, you can do that
Mm-hmm.
right there on the platform. But
Mm-hmm.
let me go back.
Yes.
When you sign up for the platform, it's going to take you through about 20 questions,
Mm-hmm.
right?
It's like
You know,
an assessment, like maybe.
assess an AI. If you're
Okay.
doing AI assessment of,
Okay.
your weight and everything else, things
Mm-hmm.
like that. So we have the fast section.
Mm-hmm.
We have the healthy mind sections that
Mm-hmm.
will give you short snippets on terms in terms of education. You see, people don't
Mm-hmm.
want to read a lot of things now, just a
I know. No.
paragraph.
Yeah.
We have
Yeah.
lots of videos. We have lots of
Yes.
videos. I have most of the videos. Kate has done some in terms of
Mm-hmm.
exercise. I
Mm-hmm.
talk about salt content, things like that, the things that are really killing us.
Mm-hmm.
We're also an Amazon affiliate. So what
Mm-hmm.
we've done is we pulled some of the products, the healthy products, right into the
Yes.
platform.
Yes.
But the biggest part of this platform is our recipes that we've been working on for years. So we have
Mm.
about 100 recipes on there, and we don't subscribe to any one particular type of diet. So we're
Mm-hmm.
not going to say, salt bitch, this and that. We'll
Right.
tell you if it's vegan, if it's vegetarian, if it's pescatarian, if it's Creole, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we try to keep it as healthy as possible and
Mm-hmm.
also give you alternatives. Instead of salt, you could add Mrs. Dash,
Right. Right.
this and that and that. So, avocado oil, olive oil, the healthier oils.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have all these recipes, one, and
Mm-hmm.
then the next section is the meal plan. So
Okay.
breakfast, lunch, dinner, you could
Mm-hmm.
pull from our
List.
recipe, and then
Mm-hmm.
you could literally set your whole meal plan for the whole week in terms of what you're gonna prepare.
Okay.
That's gonna be version one.
Mm-hmm.
Version two, AI is all around us.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm working with my developers on how we could use AI to help someone, with the particular issues that they have, and
Mm-hmm.
it will be more of an individual, process.
More
But
customized.
so
Okay.
far, so
Mm-hmm.
far the platform is just as I talked about. We're gonna talk about things that you've never, fruits that you never heard about,
Mm-hmm.
herbs and things like that. Because again, I'm an allopathic physician, but I also subscribe to herbal medicine
Mm-hmm.
and its benefits. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of information, on there. The noni fruit, the mangosteen. What is all the talk about?
Mm-hmm.
Is there any data on sitting in a sauna,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
meditation?
Interesting.
All this information is in there, and as it will be a living, breathing platform where we'll add new
Mm-hmm.
videos, and then you'll get notification when a new recipe comes up and things like that.
Okay. So
It
who's
for
that
it's
app
called
for? Who's the app for? Who's your primary target? Like as in
um
customers. Who do you want to check
uh
out?
the pre-diabetic. I really, pre-diabetics, diabetics,
Mm-hmm.
morbidly obese patients,
Mm-hmm.
and patients who just want to have a better understanding of food, right?
Nutrition.
So I would
Mhm.
say everyone. it,
Yes.
it's important because I think we don't understand salt, we don't
Mhm.
understand what sugar is,
Yeah.
right? And I think there's a lot of things going on that I get referrals, consult, whatever you want to call it, and I try to
Mhm.
explain to folks, what
Mhm.
what's in breadfruit, what's in potato, what's in dasheen. There's a lot of that. So if our culture could embrace this
Mhm.
app,
Yeah.
then there'll be a better understanding. And I try to go into some of them. I actually have references to the medical literature,
Okay.
right?
That's
So
great.
for example, papaya.
Mhm.
What's the benefit of papaya, the
Mhm.
leaves, right? And all that, because there
Mhm.
there is some scientific data behind some of that.
Mhm.
And I always
Okay.
I used to give a lecture in the Caribbean. I remind people that 85% of the medicines that we consume up here is derived from plants.
That's right.
Yeah. So eat
That's
for
right.
living. It's coming.
Okay. Very nice. Very nice. Y'all, you heard that? Eat for a living.
Mhm.
Dr. Dale and Kate are working on this for you, for me, for us. Okay. Doc, I want you to think of your final thoughts as I share what seems to be the theme, right? A couple people are taking this away with them tonight. Unica says what she's taking away from what you said, what you've talked about, what you've shared tonight is give to others what you wanted that no one gave to you. Yeah, know that you're in the position
Right.
to give it. And Faye Dashin is saying the same thing. Her key takeaway is to give to others what you wished others had given to you. I think that's a way to heal ourselves. It's a way to offer yourself. It's a soothing, corrective kind of experience. And so psychologically, it's a beautiful thing to do. So, Doc, your final thoughts?
Yeah. Well, I will end with this. I think we need to get back to the village mentality. I think we've gone so far away, especially us in the diaspora,
Mm-hmm.
right? Some of us come up here, we feel like we've arrived,
Mm-hmm.
we've made it, and we're
Mm-hmm.
beyond what was left behind. We need to get away from that and say, you know what, we are one. Because I think that the further away that we go from Dominica, from our roots and our culture, the more it gets eroded on the other side,
I
and
agree.
many other people are taking advantage of that, and that's what we see happening. Not just our brothers and sisters down there, but those that they've brought in that takes advantage of things that we should be taking
Yes.
advantage of. So I think we need a collective in terms of not just education, not just healthcare, but every sector. And we need to when the bell rings, we need to come together and say, hey, what can I do to fix this problem? Because
Mm-hmm.
I think the diaspora is very, very responsible for what is happening back
Mm-hmm.
home. When you take a ticket and you go and vote and you come back up here and you enjoy the benefits of a first world country, I think it's grossly unfair to your forefathers, your foremothers, and those who sacrificed in Dominica. I can tell you that
Mm-hmm.
it's not the way the ancestors wanted this to go. Think of the 50s, think of the 60s and the 70s and what we stood for, the pride that we had, the independence that we fought for, and where we are today. I can tell you we're nowhere close. That's what I want to end with.
Yeah. So what I hear you saying is there's a big onus on us out here in the diaspora, and particularly, you reference taking tickets to go home to vote and to come back to places where we have an abundance of electricity and our people cannot keep their meat on their refrigerators. And they've got to go
Yeah.
back to the butter, what do you call it? The margarine, the glow spread and the margarine bowl to put the little papa
Yeah.
wants in.
Yeah.
Y'all, I do agree with you. I do agree with you that there is a piece of so many of us out here in the diaspora. I actually had somebody when I was at Ole Miss in a kind of derogatory way say to me something like, "Oh, yeah, all of y'all here, you're smart at Ole Miss because you're the cream of the crop." They said we were the cream of the crop. But that's that idea, though, that a lot of
Yeah.
us we leave with all of our skills, that brain drain. And I don't
Yeah.
know that we necessarily have found good ways to titrate some of that back in to Dominica in a way that can help, the greater good. So I
Yeah.
appreciate thoughts on that. So you want to answer any questions, Doc? Maybe one person, somebody, I saw somebody ask a question about how do we think like planning, as we move forward, planning wise, what
Um,
some suggestions? You've mentioned some already, like
yeah.
forming small groups and creating small community-based projects.
Yeah, but I think the focus has to be on financial growth. Um, whatever, and we have to be able to ostracize the elements that we see that are coming in
The
to,
predatory elements
yes,
that are
yes,
coming like
because
pack.
I think a lot of these groups that I have been a part of up here have been infiltrated, and I think yeah, I like the word ostracize, but I think these small groups up here, it doesn't have to just be independence time to wear your warb and
Mhm.
and go dancing, but building more than that, building financial institutions that's gonna, you know, fund projects, whether we do it in phases, you
Mm,
know, up here or down there. I think
mhm.
it's important that we start thinking like that. I
Gotta
get
raise
into
awareness.
I get
Raise
into this Marcus
awareness.
Garvey. I really, really, truly believe in this Marcus Garvey mentality
Mhm,
of what he wanted to do. You know, he
mhm,
bought the boat, he had the printing press, and he was doing it. And I think that we need to start doing these things that funnel, that creates funds, that
mhm,
investment funds and things like that,
mhm,
and not just put our money um, elsewhere that it does not work for us. We need to start
mhm,
focusing so we can help the farmers, we could help small
mhm.
businesses back home, and it doesn't all have to fall on the government.
I agree.
Although there will be some obstruction, you
Mhm,
know, and inhibition, but we can at least say we have this amount, leverage banks, build something meaningful, and then have an
mhm,
impact. Not just every November or every festival to
mhm,
have a you know, potato salad and chicken party, but
mhm.
something more meaningful than that. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. And I appreciate you again for sharing your story with us. I hope you have a wonderful evening. Y'all, thank you
Hello.
all for listening. Nous allons parler l'autre fois. Peace.
All right. Bonsoir. Bonsoir.
Bonsoir.
All right.